So as you can tell by the intro, we're talking about the Ford GT today, and if you were anywhere near a computer or Detroit, Michigan in the past couple of weeks, you know that Ford is doing a new Ford GT. But these guys at Classic Car Club Manhattan were the first guys I knew that bought the last gen Ford GT. So we're going to be talking about all kinds of Ford GT stuff today, so stick around. It's After Drive. So welcome to After Drive. We're here at Classic Car Club Manhattan with Mike and Zac. And we're here because these were the first guys that I knew to buy a Ford GT, the last one that came out. For the club, you guys bought it, right?
Yeah, two of them, in fact.
Two of them.
Both new.
Yes.
And you have a lot of friends with Ford GTs, I imagine.
I know
pretty cool, man.
Practically no one, except for you guys.
Oh, all right, cool.
And if
Well,
I
happy
wish,
to know you.
I wish I had mortgaged my life to buy one because they are going through the roof right now.
Oh my God, I wish we didn't sell ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the only car that literally, every time it's brought to my attention, which is practically every day, I regret selling it.
Right.
We've had a lot of cars. That's the one I miss every day.
It's pretty amazing. So the new Ford GT, completely different than the last one. Just came out in Detroit.
Yeah.
You know, Detroit just totally won Detroit Auto Show. Ford just won Detroit Auto Show with this car because basically nobody knew about it except Johnny Lieberman from Motor Trend. Have to give him props for sussing out that story. Hat tip.
And that's the way to do it. You know, you're going to do a big impact car. Don't leak out all the little bits and kind of tease it
Right.
for months.
Yeah.
Just boom,
But
there it is. You know?
a lot of people at Ford didn't know it was being done. It was done in the basement. It was a secret car. It's like, you know, part of a big, like, company-wide initiative.
It was like authentic skunk works.
It was.
I heard like
authentic.
when they wanted to see what it was like outside, they rolled it out on Sunday mornings. No one was there. I don't know where
Yeah.
I read that, but
I mean, totally skunk work stuff.
yeah, cool.
Anyway, so really quickly, obviously 600 horsepower, EcoBoost 3.5, kind of like the engine in the new Raptor, which is kind of interesting. They went with EcoBoost there.
Yeah.
A V6 supercar, huh? We'll get to that, obviously, because people at the show were going, you know, yeah, it's a V6. That's kind of not a supercar engine. Yeah, tell Jaguar's.
Looks like a supercar to me.
Yeah, the XJ220 wasn't supposed to be, but ended up as that. But we'll talk about that in a second. Carbon fiber structure, carbon fiber body panels, aluminum subframes to kind of meet, you know, to get wonky about racing, kind of meeting GTE regulations from the ACO, which means, you know,
Probably
going to
gonna go racing,
go racing with it. 7-speed dual clutch gearbox. And it looks badass.
Active Aero.
And Active Aero, thank you. Active Aero.
Yeah, lots of stuff you wouldn't expect from the last GT, but, you know, time has to move on. So.
Yeah.
Right. Well, a lot of people at the show were saying, you know, it looks like an Enzo. It's like the giant intakes on the side, and it looks, you know, with the carbons and stuff.
How do you think it looked in person?
I loved it in person. I mean, honestly, like I think it just showed so well under the lights, and you know, it was stanced a little downward a little bit, so it was probably at its lowest setting. I mean, it's
Do we know
gorgeous.
how
I think it's
tall it
gorgeous.
is?
You know what? I'll bet at the lowest setting, it's higher than 40 inches, like the GT40.
GT43 was the
Yeah,
last
is
one.
that the
It was
last
40,
one?
the last Ford GT was
Right.
43.
That's where obviously the 40 comes from. I don't know how high it is. We'll have to check that out. So anyway, let's go to the history quickly because we are sitting in front of a replica of one of the cars that won Le Mans in 1966, which coincidentally or sort of indicatively is 50 years from next year when the new GT is coming out. So read into that in any way you want. In other words, yes, it's going racing. It's not official, but yeah. So tell me about this car right here.
So exactly what you'd expect from taking a 60s Le Mans car on the road. It's super raw. You know, there's no apologies for it. It's really hard to get in and out of. It makes crazy noises and rattles your spine in ways no other cars will, but it's so gratifying for the effort. Really, really awesome car.
Well, this is actually a replica of a specific chassis,
Yeah,
right?
so it's a replica of chassis 1075, which is the only one that won Le Mans twice.
That's
pretty
Mark,
cool.
Mark II.
I don't know. I don't know all the Mark.
Well, the
I
Mark
don't know
stuff
all
is
the nerdy
interesting.
Mark 1, Mark 2 stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not in the
mean,
loop.
honestly, like if you
Call
really,
Mark a nerd.
if you want the background, read AJ Bames' Go Like Hell.
Yeah.
It's about the rivalry between Ford and Ferrari that led to this car, or the one that was original like it.
It's a really cool American story, actually. American racing
fantastic story.
Carroll
Yeah.
Shelby.
Yeah,
It's great. It's
Carroll
cool.
Shelby, Hank the Deuce, Henry Ford II,
Deuce.
Enzo Ferrari. You know, it was like, it's, battle of egos.
Passionate Italian egos. Yeah.
Right, battle of engineers. How much, the resources that Ford put into making this thing a winning race car are just insane.
And also, if you read the book, you do get a sense that, in the 60s, if you watch Le Mans and you see the amount of money that goes into it, it's not to say that it wasn't a lot of money for the time, but it was a lot more hardscrabble racing at that level. It was like pros or factory teams felt like privateer teams of today. It's
Right.
cool to see them sort of struggle through it.
Well, it's true, and it's really interesting to see, originally it was basically a British car.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit got a little more involved at the end, but like the Brits and their racing heritage really sort of created the model for it.
Yeah, it was based off the Lola Mark
Yeah,
6.
Lola Mark 6 or 6. Yeah, all right, I'll
think
go
it's
with
6.
that.
You'll let us know if we're right or wrong.
Right, but you're right. It was based on a Lola, and eventually started out as a 289 car, the 289 V8, the Ford V8. But the Mark I that they sold 84 of them to homologate for racing, all right-hand drive, very, very rare car. Obviously, if you could find one in America, you almost never see them.
Right-hand drive, and then right-mounted gear selector as well.
Right.
It was in between you and the door,
Yeah.
like an open wheel.
Yeah,
Single-seat race
exactly.
car.
So never technically legal in America, although people brought them over and drove them. And then they, obviously read the book. The details we're going to have to leave out because it's just a ton. But then you get to the Mark IIs that won Le Mans. Won Sebring in '65, won Le Mans in '66. Those had the 427, like the NASCAR motor. Produced a ton of horsepower, and this is when they started to see like 200 miles an hour on the Mulsanne before they put in the
Could you imagine how
chicane.
scary that was?
I
Listen,
can't
driving
even
this
imagine.
around, you don't feel safe. I'd say. It's a great car and all that, but you don't have airbags.
And the engine isn't.
You're surrounded by gas tanks.
Yeah, well, that's
You know?
another thing. I mean, the amount when you're in an endurance car back then,
Wow.
with all the gas that they had on board. This is a 302 actually, right? This is not a non-original engine, but hey, what are you going to do? I mean, it would be insane to get an original 427.
Still makes great sounds. And,
Yeah.
And going down, rolling through the gears, going on the highway, it's like you're looking at the screen when you're watching the movie Le Mans. You see the lines going
Right.
faster and faster as you're going through really long gears and knocking
Exactly.
along. It's
Can't
fun.
see anything behind you. We actually put a little camera in this one. So you can see
Did you really?
Yeah, yeah.
And you got to watch your head, obviously, because it's got
Do
the
the
cut in like the next one. Anyway, so that's, they did make some, I think 6 or 7 Mark IIIs that
7 of
people
them.
could buy in America, but none of the road cars ever had the 427. They had the
No, and they had
289s.
they were longer and they had a trunk and things like that.
Yeah, and they had the different lights. I mean, they were made a little bit differently, but they were $18,500 new in 1966, 65, 66, 67, yeah.
Are they I mean, every GT is desirable, but
Oh, yeah. No, they're
are those-
millions.
Are
They're
those,
millions.
are those more collectible than the
Than the original? Than the original 84?
sort of the race? Yeah, than the Mark Ones.
That's a good question. I
I
know.
mean, only probably because there's 7 of them. They are. You never
Yeah.
see them.
Oh, I know, and I mean they're $2+ million at the low end when they do come up for auction. So
I'll
I mean they're
take 3.
giant money. I mean it's huge. I mean this is a historic car. After that, there were Ford pulled out of racing. And then there were privateers. They still Jackie Eakes raced one of these, and I think it was '69, same car. But it was sort of Ford had done its thing. It won 1, 2, 3, and it was like, hey Enzo, F you, so we're out. Drop the mic, and that's it. So, right? So then, we created a legend. So that's this mid-'60s legend.
It's also the first. It was the first American car and the last one to ever win Le Mans.
Yeah,
Right? The Mark II, I think.
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, Ford will hopefully try to,
Be the first and the last?
the
That'd
second.
be cool, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be. We'll get to that in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But first, we have to get to the car that you guys bought in 2005, which was the Ford GT, the remake, the Camilo Pardo designed, gorgeous, giant Hulk
Excellent
of
car.
insanity that they put out.
Excellent car.
5.4 liter supercharged
Supercharged, yep.
V8, kind of based a little bit on the heads. I guess were Ford was the Mustang Cobra R. The block itself, is
From the Lightning.
Lightning. Yeah,
Right,
right.
the Lightning pickup truck?
It was the Ford that V8 that was in everything.
Yeah.
It was partially red. I like that.
It was partial.
Bottom of the engine.
Right. Really, but like giant, it was really an American car. And this is kind of the thing we're going to get into with the new GT is that it feels more like a global car where the 2005-6 GT felt like a really American car.
Felt like a celebration to America's motorsport history. It's
Yeah.
exactly what it
Yeah.
was.
For me,
Very simple.
One of the reasons that I'm always so gutted about selling it is for us, it really is kind of the mashup of everything that we like at Classic Car Club.
Yeah.
It's classic and exotic at the same time. We're real classic car guys and we really care about the super sophisticated modern stuff, except that when it makes a great car to drive. But yeah, that car is a really true and honest machine. There was no sophisticated traction control, no electronic nannies at all. It had some ABS and everything
It was a
else.
killer, wasn't it?
Everything was up to you. You really had to take it on board. And because of that, it was one of the few cars that every time I got in it, I still had butterflies, and that was a good thing.
Yeah.
Every one of us spun it. We all got relatively lucky. I think.
Spinning it, doing not much either. Like,
Yeah.
we're not the kind of guys that go out on the road and be like, oh, I'm gonna kill this thing.
Yeah,
No,
like four-way intersection in the suburbs on like a dewy Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Trying to show my father, I'm like, oh yeah, I got this Ford GT, and go to the left and flick the throttle and hit a 270 in the intersection. And end up at this stop sign pointing that way. I'm like, oh yeah, that was awesome, right? And my face is green.
Play it off a
had
little.
to swallow
Yeah, I
it
got
back
this.
a little bit. But
it was
Was
one
it
of
the tires?
It's a
No,
lot
the
of
tires
things.
are part of it. It was 550 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque.
That
It came
torque,
on
yeah.
whenever you asked for it to be. There's nothing
Yeah.
to interfere with it, with a pre-locked-up diff. And yeah, the Goodyear tires that it shipped with were really hard to get to grip. I mean, I imagine if you got a lot of heat in them, they probably worked pretty well. But
Yeah.
in any road conditions, it didn't work. So,
Right.
so we did switch to the Bridgestones, which made it a lot more compliant.
Well,
and
tell me. You
manageable.
told me a story about which Bridgestones fit on it.
Yeah, so the rears were the Enzo tires, and the front, I forget what size, they were a little bit wider than the stock one, so it did make the front a little more stable, but it's also like the tires just more compliant in general, like a better sidewall, and just more grip.
Well, but
normal
tires.
conditions.
It's funny because in those 5 years, tires, had this almost renaissance of good tires came out.
Yeah.
Between 05 and 10, and even now. So that when you get a car like that and you put 2,000 horsepower in it, you get M2K Motorsports that did 278 miles an hour at Texas Mile, which is a testament to the platform, because basically that was kind of a mostly stock platform.
It was a really durable car.
Yeah.
It was very simple.
Yeah, we put 66,000 miles on our last one. I think it must be one of the highest mile ones in the country.
Yeah.
Well-
and it was a good machine. It worked through all that.
Yeah, and it's a testament to the car itself and its desirability, is that it came out, it was 150 list. I mean, some people were paying over list, but now, they were kind of stayed about, 150, 170. They just jumped to like 300, 350 they're going to go to. I mean, it's
Yeah,
really
well, I mean,
a lot of
insane.
them got written off. So
Yeah.
people like either.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when we got ours and we were very into driving it, and you'd know some people have them. They would like lock it in the garage. It was just an investment piece, and I was like, oh, it's such a.
Yeah.
It wants to drive. Just
Yeah,
drive it. But
when
those
we-
people are.
When
old.
we picked ours up, they brought out all the plastics on it still, and we're like, "What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna."
They had no. We
we're
drove
like,
it home.
You don't have a flatbed here to take? No, we're gonna drive it.
Where are you kidding
And
me?
they're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you're actually gonna drive it? Like, yeah, we're gonna bring it back next year with 40,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean,
I like that car. I think it taught me a lot as a driver, because we have a lot of cars here with no electronic aids or anything, but to have that much power and that much torque and that much potential without any help, it very quickly let you know just exactly how good you were and where your faults were.
yeah.
And once you
Venomous.
Once you start to appreciate your own limits, it was a really good car. I mean, it goes where you point it. It brakes well, it turns well. I can't say what it's like at the limits on a track because I'm not skilled enough to push it like that. But in all the conditions I could enjoy it as long as I was hyper conscious with what I was doing with my right foot. It was super enjoyable.
Yeah.
car.
Well, it's funny. It doesn't have a great racing history, except for the fact that the Robertsons used to race them
Yeah.
in GT racing. I mean, I saw them at Sebring once, and it was awesome. They didn't do that well, but it was always like when they went by, you just heard them,
menacing,
and it was
right?
menacing, and it was
Looked
like
great
you
in
just
race
couldn't help
trim.
but cheer for them. You
Yeah.
know, that they were privateers and they were making this GT racing platform thing work, and you know, they were like the underdogs of Sebring, and everybody loved it. It was just because it just looked great.
And it really did look like a historical piece, which is
Yeah.
much different than the new one.
Yeah,
I like, you know, the last one definitely was an homage to the, you know, the original GTs, and the new one, from what I can see, obviously is
All right.
way different.
So that brings us to the new one in Detroit.
Yeah.
You know, I think the thing that strikes me the most about it is that it feels like a global car. It doesn't, you know, where the last one we were saying, you know, felt like an American car. This feels like a car that's built for the rest of the world, and it kind of, you know, not to get too wonky about Ford, but Ford's just put all of its performance stuff under one umbrella. Like, it's Ford Performance now, and that's Ford Racing, it's SVT that we know from old Mustangs and also from the Raptor,
Yep.
but also Team RS in Europe, which, you know, we're gonna get a new Ford Focus RS soon. So Ford's really kind of, you know, creating this halo over the EcoBoost engine and, you know, like, you know, turbocharged 6s and 4s and stuff. But that brings me to this. Can a supercar have a V6? Because I can't think of, I mean, all right, there's the inline 6, it was the M1, if the BMW M1 is truly a supercar, which is debatable, but the Jag XJ220 wasn't supposed to have a V6, but it ended up with
What
a
makes a
twin
supercar a
turbo car.
supercar?
Well, you know, there's for us, you know, that it shouldn't matter. But like for guys that are going to buy it, is it like, does it have to have a V12?
People are still paying $190,000 for a 6-cylinder Porsche turbo. I know it's a Boxer that has a different sound,
That's
it's
true.
a Heritage and all that, but I don't think it really matters how many cylinders it has. I mean, sure, you know, with my perspective on the last one and how the great thing was, it's such an honest and pure, like, raw car. When I saw V6 turbo and battleship gearbox and like all that, I was like, ah, man, it's not going to be like the old one. But you can't get stuck too much in the past.
Yeah,
And the motor, they've been running that motor in Grand Am, you know, for a couple seasons already, right? And doing well with it. So
15,000 race miles on
yeah,
it.
so there's a really good race reason behind it. And,
That's a good point.
And if you're looking to make a really purposeful supercar, yeah, you got to make it something that you can race. You know?
To me, like a true supercar is a platform for innovation.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have like your show cars that never turn into anything. But a supercar should be, in my estimation, a car that pushes a company's R&D and engineering skills to the limit. And the way that you do that is through the crucible of motorsport. And so I don't think it matters what engine it has in it. If that engine is doing really well, I think it has a victory already. And
Yeah.
it's winning, and it's fast, and it's durable, and it can handle a 24-hour race. And it can do 200 and something miles an hour, and it has the performance numbers that I imagine the new Ford GT would put up. That was a supercar in my book.
yeah.
I almost think
Sure.
that like the other ones that don't really ever show up in racing, and like some Lamborghinis and things like that, of course they're supercars,
Right.
but not in the same spirit. They're supercars sort of like in the expense and the kind of glamour of it.
Right. You know what's interesting about it though is that, you know, it's a halo car for Ford, but in one way it's a halo car for materials.
For America.
Well, it's not like a, but like, you know, in
materials, yeah,
the old
sure.
days, like it was a halo car because of it had this exotic engine, which
Yeah.
obviously it's a more exotic EcoBoost than standard,
Yeah.
but like it's for Ford, it's about the materials. It's about using,
Efficiency.
it's about carbon fiber becoming something that finds its way down into cheaper cars.
Yeah. Yep.
It's also about efficiency in motorsport, but it's interesting because you got into a little bit of a tiff on Jalopnik with some commenters
Yeah.
because they said, oh, you know, efficiency it shouldn't matter for a
Someone
supercar.
asked what the MPG was, and everybody said, it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
a race car. Totally matters.
But in Le Mans, it's about endurance. So
Right.
it's about how much, ultimately,
one
how much
less visit
fuel.
to the pits, man.
Indeed.
That's,
Yeah.
You know, it's all that.
It's not as sexy, obviously, as
No.
like.
Yeah,
It's
I
not.
mean, like I was desperate to see the flat plane crank V8 in there. It's going to sound awesome. I can't imagine how they justified the resources to build that motor without planning to go in the GT. But, you know, I was angry about that for a few minutes, and then I kind of swallowed it and said, you know what, if they're racing this motor and it's really purposeful race motor, it's going to be awesome.
I think they're going to sell a lot of crate flat plane crank motors.
Oh, yeah?
I think that I think for
Now you got me thinking. That's a whole other show. I've got
pop,
my
pop.
my LS donors, but
There you go.
Yeah.
I know. I think you might want to rethink it.
flat
I,
plane crank.
when the Porsche GT3 came out, I sort of had that same narrative that people have. Oh, it's a GT. It should have a manual gearbox, and it should be simple, and it should be what it is. But with the Ford GT, I think of the first Ford GT as just the very best and fastest and best performance thing that Ford can make.
Right.
The last generation one, the 2005 was like we said, it was like just a celebration of that car. But the new one, it'll be racing, we suspect, and it should just be the best platform that Ford could do. So I think it actually keeps the lineage of a Ford GT going. The next one should fly. That's what it should do. The wing should fly. It should be really cool.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time last night just really kind of looking at the thing and trying to figure out what it might be. Mm-hmm. And while I'm a little annoyed about technology encroaching on it with such a pure machine, my expectation is, compared to all the other supercars that it's going to compete with, it's still going to be the rawest. I mean, we'll have a paddle shift gearbox because you have to,
right?
And it's going to probably have some kind of traction control, but
because you have to.
I bet the delivery would be super raw. And if you look close at the pictures with how they made it, the build of it speaks to that. The carbon fiber, the bits of carbon fiber that show up in the dash aren't laid on top of another material wrapped in leather. That's actually the carbon fiber the dash is made of. The sides of the doors. It's all purposeful. It's all purposeful. They didn't even make the seats move.
That's right. We'll have adjustable pedals.
They didn't make the seats move?
No, the seats are fixed. And the pedals move towards you.
We'll have to start manufacturing our bolsters.
Yeah.
This car, they don't move either.
They don't move,
We made these leather pads of different depths for our different members, so they could all fit in it properly.
Yeah. So I don't think there's glossing up a Ford Flex EcoBoost motor around a mid-engine chassis and calling it a supercar. I think it's all really purposeful, serious stuff.
I think you're right. The other thing is that if you do want to think about marketing at all, it's the EcoBoost needs a halo, because otherwise it's just kind of, it feels like a pedestrian engine because it's in a Taurus and it's in a Focus and it's in a pickup truck, and it's like in all the, whatever.
It doesn't feel very.
It doesn't feel exotic, but so maybe instead of it bringing the GT down, maybe the GT will bring the EcoBoost up. I think that's what Ford's hoping. Also, around the world, Turbo 6s don't have the stigma that they might in some circles in America. So I mean,
we have an Ariel Atom with a Honda engine in it, but we did drive one. Remember the Ariel Atoms had the EcoBoost engine in it for a little bit.
Yeah. The other thing I kept coming across, everything I read where anyone was talking about is Ford, they were really not so subtly dropping hints about how important lightness was.
Yeah.
And obviously it's got carbon fiber tub and all that stuff that should make a car light, but they were pretty deliberate about saying it'll have one of the highest power to weight ratios of any production car on the road.
Yeah.
And they also, to bring it full circle to an earlier Drive episode where we talked about efficiency paying dividends into performance, because they can only go so far with the combustion engine. They're gonna have to focus on being light at some point, and the lighter they make it, the better it handles, brakes, whatever. Ford said the same thing. They said, our efforts to make the car lightweight will make it handle better, brake better, do everything else better. I think this thing might be sub 3,000 pounds.
I mean, if it is, that would be. I think it is. I think it's going to be too. I agree with you.
Because the 650S is just over, right?
Right. So carbon fiber tub, carbon fiber body panels, and because of racing homologation stuff, it's going to have two aluminum subframes, and then it's got
and they took out power seat, they took out everything. I mean, 2,800 pound, 600 horsepower supercar, that'd be epic, and it would be
frightening.
That would back up my theory that it's going to be a great driver's car, still be really raw, even with all the sophistication of modern technology.
Yeah. Well, I hope it is, Zach, because it would be, kind of fitting for Ford to do, for its Halo car to be as good as the cheapest to be as good as the Fiesta ST, which is an amazing version of that. It's like the cheap version of exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
What do you think we're gonna have to pay for one?
All right, so that's a good question. I was looking at all the carbon fiber, I can't imagine it being less than $250. But that seems high, but for homologation, they only have to build 100, and then I think they have to build, because they're a big car
major
maker,
manufacturer has to
they
build,
have to build
yeah.
one a week.
1 week.
And until they have 100. I don't know, they'll probably be able to play with the regulations at all. But also it's got push rod suspension. It's ready to go basically for racing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got the air. Obviously, the active aero won't be in
the
use
race
for the racetrack, but
But they've designed the rest of the body around aerodynamics.
yeah,
it's
exactly.
The buttresses and everything.
So, we're going to see in 2016 that it'll probably go racing.
I'm saying 210.
Ganassi?
$210,000.
$210,000.
That's my guess.
Okay.
I might be a little
You have a
light
guess?
there. I feel like the first one was priced really fairly for what it was.
150.
The asking price.
The
not what
asking
you
price
got
was
it for.
150. There was a $13,000 option package, and that was it. And then, some people bought it for more because they
You know,
gouged
you
them.
know what's
I-
pretty
I-
good about the other car? Parts. It's not to say that parts were cheap, but they weren't expensive compared to everything else.
Yeah.
This is just Ford.
exactly.
It's the
You know?
same parts for the
This
Ford
one's a lot
trucks
more
and the same
technical.
motor.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, unfortunately, I think that's where the application of technology is really gonna burn my ethos in the GT. I think that is gonna drive the price up. He's
Yeah.
probably right about 250, but
Yeah.
still, 250 for that, or it's hard to get a Huracan for less than 300. So
It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, it'll be. For 600 horsepower, it'll be in that range, definitely.
yeah.
I think that's about it. We got anything else? We're talking about. Oh, here we go. Chip Ganassi. Is it going to be Ganassi? Because that's the obvious choice that Ganassi is doing the Daytona prototype version of the EcoBoost.
Yep.
And that's been a really good test platform for the engine that they're going to put in there. So
Makes a lot of sense.
makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to bet on Ganassi being the guy
I will.
in the racing team.
I will back your bet.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's it. So what do you guys think? Ford GT, yay or nay? Is a V6 turbo okay to power a supercar? Other than the XJ220, which wasn't supposed to be a V6, was just a kind of stopgap measure because they couldn't do the 12. But I don't know. I say yes. What do you guys think? And that's it for After Drive today. Let us know in the comments on Facebook, everywhere else. What do you think about the Ford GT? Mike and Zac, the Classic Car Club Manhattan. Good to see you guys again. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Long John, that ending. Wrap it up. See you later.